Imagine a league built by the people, for the people. A league dedicated to the economic development of your city. So the question becomes, how good are the 32 teams that play in the minor football league? Well, there's only one way to find out. You have to experience the MFL.
Welcome to another edition of Inside the MFL. I'm your host, Dr. Richard D. Myles Sr., CEO, Chairman, and Founder of the Minor Football League. Today is Wednesday. I hope everybody taking this precaution. Don't get too excited yet. Don't get too excited. I got the man of the hour on, Mr. Keith Jones. I always have Keith to come here to make sure that we get things right. How you doing today, sir?
Confused. I'm not sure because I heard just a couple of days ago that the pandemic had ended and everything is open and people can run around without masks on. And so I'm super excited because apparently the MFL is back in play. And I know I'm with you there. I cannot be the only one who's confused on this. I was kind of excited, though, to think that maybe the MFL can kick off their season a little earlier than the adjusted time, but as Commission's shaking his head already, we don't know what's going on still.
Well, I'm glad you said that because it is. We are getting mixed signals, and as of right now, they were talking about July, the end of July, which is not too bad for us, but it negates most of the season. But we're going to go with the rest of the season anyway, Keith, as you know. But more importantly, I'm confused. I'm really confused because in some parts of the country, they're still not allowing but so many people in. That doesn't work for us. Some parts telling us still wait. As you know, we're in the nation capital, so I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on, and we're going to have some meetings. But I can assure MFL Nation, whatever time we have left in this season, we will go, Keith. We're definitely going to do that, and we'll do a playoff. But I want everybody to know MFL Nation for being patient, and I know they're excited as well as us. And my hat's off to a lot of the players because, hey, they still getting ready. But I heard, Keith, we look like we're going back in the studio, huh?
I'm hearing this too. Apparently, DC is now open, or at least the restaurants are at 100% capacity. I called one yesterday, very well known one, just to check and see, and they said, sure, and the bar's open too. So come on and have a seat. I said,
but what about the sports facility? That's a different story there. Believe me, I know. I'm on the go with that all the time, and I realize that things are not what they appear to be, Keith. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
I cited, but we have to be smart enough to understand this is not over. I went to a funeral this past Friday, and I'm going to tell you something. We still need to be careful. And when you hear the surveys on the news and stuff, people like, no, shouldn't open up. Now, these are the public. You guys in the general public, you're the senses of what we should do. You always got some people out there, Keith, that's doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And I'm at that age, Keith. I'm a little more dated than you will ever be right now at your young age.
Thanks,
so I have to be careful and I have to be very mindful of these players. Although we would like to go, we still have to be very mindful of this stuff is serious.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts still. And as exciting as it can be, hearing the news that things are opening up. I mean, even you mentioned DC, and I was talking about the restaurants in all seriousness. I mean, the DC vaccination rate, I think, is 45%. 45. So not even half the people in DC have been vaccinated yet. Here the restaurants are opening at full capacity and everything else. And there's always nonsense going on. I just it's still the great unknown. So I understand you shaking your head, and I'm with you on that, Doc. There's just too many moving parts still.
And as you know, they want to make sure they clarify and make it the DMV. So now you got people from different parts of the DMV area coming back and forth. Also, not being that kind of doctor, not an MD, they said the young people that really need to have these shots are having a little problem with it, the reaction of it. So that makes them even more reluctant to take it. So what is your senses on that, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, it's still there's a lot of unknown still. I use that word a lot, but that's the case. And whether it's the 12 to 17s or whatever the age group is that they're working on lately, that's what you're dealing with. So they're trying to get schools back open and different things like that, but not everybody's still buying into the vaccination process. I mean, that's just the way it is. And now with the, hey, take your mask off if you've been vaccinated. Well, if I haven't been vaccinated, it's because I didn't want to get vaccinated. Oh, I can take my mask off too, because you can't ask me about my CDC card or anything or violate HIPAA, which is a law and such. So there you go. We're back to the wild, wild west again. We never left. So it's interesting, but from the dynamic of leagues, and we hear that the NFL is looking to open up at 100% capacity in the fall. That's when that announcement came out, my phone kind of blew up. I got no less than 8 texts from people saying, "Are you really going to be covering the NFL in the stadiums?" And is that the word you got too? Big things like that coming in text wise. So a lot of people with a lot of questions. But when you control the entity like the NFL does with the stadiums and such, I mean, the owners took a financial hurting last season. Obviously, they still get the big TV money, which helped float a lot of things, but they didn't get the concessions, and they didn't get the gate, and they didn't get a lot of things, the sweet money, so to speak, that they would, the sweet money, as we would say, as they would have. So there was definitely a hit to the bottom line. Owners would be looking to make that up, and since they own the stadiums in the NFL, say it's my property. I can, if I got to go ahead from a local jurisdiction, which is like for the Washington football team, they're in Prince George's County, Maryland. So Prince George said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So Dan Snyder and the gang are like, okay, here we go. So that's kind of where that's at. But it is nice to see that the NFL teams are having their OTAs, the other team outings and such, and this to see some movement is always good. And it's never a bad time of the year for football. I'm just going to say that. So I know it's a little warm in parts of the country and a little humid and such. So you better strap on the pads. It gets a little bit much, but it's great to see that some movement is happening with football.
And absolutely, and as you know, we play during the summer. That's our time of the year to play. But I'm glad you said something. I want people to understand the sweet money. That's sweet money for them. That's survival money for the MFL, because as you know, that what helps us to operate this thing as smoothly as we do, with the fan base, with the concession, with the parking, with the apparel. So it's not sweet thing for us. It's survival for the MFL to do this, because although some of these venues said that we only allow so many people, and that's so small that it does hurt, because they're not going down on the price of the rental of the venue, nor the officials, and these types of things. So it makes it a little rough for us when we can't sell the tickets that we need to sell. And we definitely want to definitely go along with what the laws and rules are and what they're doing, but we also have to be very mindful of that the fact that we need to have things open, but not that nobody spits. You know what I mean? Somebody gets sick or something. So I'm a little concerned, and you know me, Keith. I'm always the optimistic person, but you know, like I say, some of our teams are going to go. Some of us won't be able to go, but that's not going to stop us. Some areas are moving a little bit, creeping a little bit more than others. Some of them just at a standstill. And I can say that about the nation capital, but I'm still going to try to have these meetings and stuff and see what we can do in terms of try to jumpstart this for this Mid-Atlantic division. We probably had 3 out of the 5 that would go in the Mid-Atlantic division, and we probably have 4 out of the 6 down in the Southern division. So, and then Texas, we just not going to go at all, you know. So I just want people, you know, and the people anxious to see us go. We have a lot of great players. I mean, think about what I sent you, Keith. Did you see the guys? And now they're calling
some big boys,
signing these individuals. Man, you know, now they're calling, and I'm excited about that, and they're excited. I think they realize, you know, these calls that they were suspected is not coming, Keith.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually bit the bullet and watched the movie Draft Day just a couple nights ago. I had recorded it, and Costner's in it, and said there's some people in the movie that shouldn't be in the movie. And anytime you have real life, like the commissioner who's actually in a movie, or you have legitimate media like ESPN in a movie, I always have a bit of exception to that. But the bottom line was, guys that were preparing for the draft didn't get taken the way they thought they were going to take, and it just flashed me back to even this year's NFL draft, where there's so much talent that players that think they're going to get taken at a certain position don't, and players that think they're going to get taken in the draft don't. So it's a big eye opener that way. It doesn't mean that they're not talented, as we've talked about this. I mean, you're talking less than 400 guys out of all the programs in the country, and there's some good big time junior college programs as well. So you throw them into the mix, and it gets even more populated. But you know, what we were talking about last time on the show was the HBCUs, and you know, it's an opportunity for those players that get overlooked, like a lot of the HBCU players do, to come and play in a professional league, to get exposure, to get their reps, to keep their career going, and then maybe get the chance to be seen and then step to the next level. Everybody wants to get to the NFL because that's the mountaintop where the money is
right, ultimate,
you know, just because you get there doesn't mean you get to stay. That's the hardest part. Getting there is one thing. Staying there, that's the other hard part about that. But there are a lot of guys that never get the opportunity, and the MFL is definitely a great alternative. And with all the other leagues around that have either been around for a long, long time, like the CFL, or some of the other ones that haven't been around as long, that are still reorganizing or figuring out what they're going to do, if they're even going to go. 2022 is going to be a big year for all professional franchises, all professional leagues. But in the meantime, when you're organizing or reorganizing, you're not playing. So there's no opportunity there. There's no front office. There's no coaching staff. There are no players, etc. So if you thought you were playing in the XFL, you're not doing it. So you need to have a place where you can go where you can play, because even at the professional level, and it used to be when the guys, the really true legends of the game, playing in the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s, they had to have a summer job, a lot of them, just to be able to make enough money. Now it's a full-time job, not just because of the money, but because you have to keep your edge. You have to, even if you're not with a team, if you're somebody who's been cut as not just as a rookie, but as a veteran, And I think back to
They're in shape.
Owens. I mean, these guys, they're constantly working out because they know that they have to get an edge and keep an edge, and that's what makes the difference between a guy who stays in the league and a guy who doesn't. So there's a lot of that going on as well, and you've got to put in the reps. It doesn't matter what it is in life or where it is. You've got to be able to do it. In football, being a contact sport, I mean, it's one thing to hit a sled, or it's one thing to run up a hill, but it's another thing to take contact from another human being and be in full mode like that. So it makes a big difference when you're trying to do preparation. And if you're not getting those kind of reps, a mano, then you definitely are sliding on the scale.
Absolutely. And I tell people all the time, don't forget, football is a collision sport. And you know what I mean by a collision sport? I mean, it's contact constantly, two unmovable objects running into each other. So if you think you can take that all the time, you got to know it's coming. So it's very important that these young men understand about getting ready and staying ready. And we signed a lot of young guys. I mean, the one kid with 6'6", 308, Keith. I mean, you look at these kids and they're excited about being here because they did not, pursue or worry about whether they got a call or not. They realized the MFL was here and they said, okay, I can continue the game and continue to work on my skills and we ready to go. And a lot of kids excited and, we getting the calls from all over now. But I also want people to understand that, this game of sports and football and, you can sit back on the couch and talk about, what you would like to do and you're going to wait for so-and-so call you. And that's just not going to happen. And I don't want to bust nobody's dream, but you get an opportunity here. And right now, even some arena leagues started, then they stopped. I don't know if you was aware of that. Because as you say, the money is just not there. I mean, people are not going there. And if you're not the other league that can afford to keep, as we say, the lights on, because they do own those venues, it's kind of difficult. I had several players to call us, with arena football. To be honest, I never liked that. To me, it's like playing football on a basketball court to me. And football wasn't meant to be played that way. But, that's where a guy can get a break or whatever. I see you smiling, Keith. I always thought it was dangerous. I know you want an opportunity to play. Your game will have to change dramatically because now you're playing on 100-yard field. We're not going to count the end zone, level 10, but as opposed to 60 yards, right, and 20 yards wide. Then you're playing with, I think, 7 guys compared to, you're playing with 11. So it is different. And if you think it's not different, even the techniques and everything is different. And I'll just strongly suggest to people, you want to play where the rules are similar to the other league. You know what I mean, Keith? I mean, you learn better that way, even the defensive backs. That's like someone wanted to play up in Canada, and then they have to make the adjustment. If they did get an opportunity to go to the other league or here because of the rules. Then you're talking about 120 yards and 60 yards wide. Then you're playing with 12 guys as opposed to 11. So you see how the dynamics change there, Keith. And wanting people to understand that. And as you stated a little bit, even the CFL might not go this year. You know that, right?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I know you're a numbers guy, but that was interesting that you pretty much have all the field statistical information and data from the other leagues, which doesn't surprise me. But to your point, and that's why arena football has been around as long as it has, because guys can adapt their game and they still get to play, but the reps are different and the whole dynamic is different. It is a speed game, and hey, it takes me back to kind of the the sandlot days, if you will, the playground. Like, hey, go long. That's what it was. Go down the field and that type of thing. I mean,
don't go too far.
Yeah,
You might run into the pop car.
I've covered 2 or 3 leagues of arena football, and it's an interesting game, but it does still exist in our society, which makes it interesting. But to your point, the MFL is, we'll call it regular football. Let's call it real football, but
And the laboratory of change.
exactly, it's much closer to the mountaintop than anything else that we've seen, and it is important for players to understand, and coaches get an opportunity in the MFL as well, but players specifically, you've got to be able to exhibit your skills. And I go back to the story that I tell pretty regularly about the parents that ask me, or the student athlete that asked me, should he go to a big school or should he go to a smaller school? And I always tell them it's better to go where you're going to be putting the most reps in. It's better to be a starter at Coastal Carolina than the 3rd or 4th stringer on the national championship, University of Alabama, Crimson Tide. So yes, you may get a ring. Your jewelry box may fill up a little bit more, but guys aren't going to be seeing you because you're not on the field and you're not getting your reps. So that's kind of the leveling field, because nowadays, although I still think the HBCUs are an exception to this rule, but nowadays almost all schools are seen at some point, and scouts with the social media or with the availability of the different videos to be sent out, or YouTube or wherever they may be. It's a little different than when you and I were coming up through high school and college. Jerry Rice would have definitely been overlooked had somebody not been at that game. But these guys do exist out there, and the dynamic is changing. But it's like the MFL drum that you've been beating for more than 25 years. The HBCUs have to step up as a league, as an entity. And I know they're not all in the MEAC; they're in different leagues as well. But they need to step up in unison and say, this is what we need to do to get our players more recognized. And until they do, until the HBCUs have an awakening, it's not going to get much better, because the scouts have limited time. It's so much easier to go to see games in the SEC, where you see, I'll use Alabama again just because they're there, Alabama against LSU, and in that game you could potentially see at least a dozen draft picks, potential draft picks. Where if you go to a couple of teams in the HBCU, you might get lucky, you might find a hidden gem, or you might find a guy and then another guy. So
don't forget the Michigans and the Notre Dames and all them, so it's a lot of traveling. And and didn't mean to cut you off, Keith, but do the HBCU really get an opportunity? Because I'm going to work even harder to get these guys to realize, hey, you can play here.
Yeah. That's why I mention it, because I think the MFL is one answer for the players in the HBCUs that get overlooked, or that should be playing at the next level, and their career may end because nobody will ever see them play, or they won't get another opportunity. And that's why I brought up the HBCUs again, because it's a great pipeline for the MFL. And granted, as much as you hate to lose players to other leagues, anytime you can get a promotion or a battlefield promotion, or you can say, going back to Eric Swine, because I saw Eric and actually announced a couple of games that he played in when he played in the minor football system. That was fantastic. When a guy like that, when Kurt Warner comes out of arena football and is now in the Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. I mean, those kind of stories are fantastic, but they do exist, because you just don't know until that person straps on that helmet. You don't know what they're capable of, and if you don't see it, you miss it. So
right, and it's ironic, Keith, that you said that, because you think about you didn't play during the regular season. Now you're on that team, but then it's over with. But now you get a reprieve somewhat because the MFL play in the summer. That's after your season over. Now the people that didn't get an opportunity to see you will see you because we're the only thing going on around that time. That
Right.
old league, the NFL is not, they're not doing anything. They're not going to have I'm getting tongue tied,
Yeah, the OTAs. Yeah.
but this is an opportunity for people to say, okay, we saw that guy, but we couldn't get back to him because of we had to go to a bigger school to look at this kid. Now just take a look at this kid now, because now you have an opportunity to see this guy develop whatever he was lacking in. We are developing him to get him ready. You cannot go from a Alabama program and going to the NFL if you just playing sitting on the bench. There's no way. I don't care how talented you are. You have to be able to play. You can't just, he was a blue chipper, but he never got in the game because the blue chipper was better than him. Now you're just out of it, Keith. So I say that to you to say, what is it that these young men missing here? Or do they understand what this thing is all about?
Well, it's interesting because especially with the athlete, the college athlete, specifically to be a pro, they always overvalue, or as I've seen, I'll say historically, overvalue their talents. And thus they think, oh, it's going to be easy. I'm going to step right in and I'm going to get drafted. And okay, I'm going to get on a team, come in as a rookie, and I'm going to play. I might start. I have these skills, and sometimes it happens. It's sometimes, most of the time, it doesn't. And that's the sad reality is you're better off. Keep your confidence, keep your internal system going on, but you're better off not having such big expectations, because then the disappointment is not nearly as big. But when you can go and get a chance and show your skills on the field for a team, that's the important part. As these guys, I always love these stories of the guys, the walk-ons at even at the big programs, like I won't say the Crimson Tide again, but for example, there these guys. So obviously they had some skills. Like, hey, let me try this. And they end up being one of the gems of the team. Same thing when you get to the NFL. You need to get on the team, so you don't have to get drafted. The draft just says you're going to sign a contract. You're going to get some money. We hope that you're going to be part of this team. I have seen so many top round picks last short periods of time and be out of football, and it's sad, and it really over the years thickened my skin to the reality of what the NFL specifically is. But just because you get drafted high doesn't mean that you're going to have a sizable career. It doesn't mean you're going to last more than a couple of years. You could. We hope that you can if you keep your skills up, keep your head on and such. But I mean, I'll go quarterback wise, and we just go back to last year's draft and see Dwayne Haskins get drafted very, very high for the Washington football team. And now he's in Pittsburgh because he's no longer with the team. And you take a guy, and I mentioned Tom Brady because he certainly is perhaps the best ever at his position. The guy, I think, he got taken 199th. Mm-hmm. I know it was the sixth round. He gets drafted by the sixth round. The only reason Tom Brady played is Drew Bledsoe went down. That's the only reason that Brady went into the game, and then the rest is history, literally. But with Brady, again, he got on a roster, mm-hmm. Had to prove himself, and then he just sat around holding a clipboard for the longest time. But he still worked. See, this is what makes Tom Brady one of the best athletes ever, because just because you're on a team and just because you are holding a clipboard doesn't mean you still don't have to put in the reps. Doesn't mean you still don't have to be ready, because it only takes one down. And, it's one play, as the guys will say. You're one play away from going into a game or getting in, and then Brady just said, I'm quarterback now. I'm not giving it back. And he just worked harder. And that's what a lot of guys, the young guys that come out of college, miss. You've got to have a drive, but you also have to have a work ethic, and you have to have a mindset and a plan on how you're going to continue to be successful. Getting on a roster, yeah, that's, but again, getting there and staying there are two different things. And that's what goes on in the NFL all the time. You're a commodity. With players that don't think they're a commodity, think that they're something else, they're losing focus on what the product is. The product is productivity. The product is how bright can you make that diamond shine. That's what it's about. And guys think that they're bigger than the game, and they're not. And bad things happen when you start thinking that. And we see that. It doesn't matter. I mean, Antonio Brown just got re-signed by the Buccaneers, which is a great addition for them. But he
almost nothing.
He virtually threw his career away at one point. So the fact that he's getting another chance, I think he has a great appreciation for it. He understands. Now, yes, Brady did help get him a Super Bowl championship ring, but you have to, put your socks on and remember, hey, I'm a football player. Let me go out and show what I can do. Stop jumping around all over the place. Play the game. There's too much of this going on, and not enough of this going on these days in the NFL, and that's becoming a problem. And we're going to see that with some rule changes this year with the NFL too, with the taunting and some other things like that. Because it's one thing to do a little smack talk, but it's another thing to get out and out unnecessarily rude. But that's where it's at with the game of football. You've got to produce.
Keith, a lot of guys don't understand. You're never off. You're always preparing yourself. And as you stated about Tom Brady, great quarterback, father and son. But even with starters, they just one play of being out of football.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could happen, So some last a long time, and you really look at it's so many things against you, and people don't realize that because you can get hurt, you can lose your spot, you can get cut. Okay, so you got a lot of things going against you and then you look at players come out of college and they are paid for what they think they might do. You know what I mean? Right. See, that's the scary part, for what they think they might do. And that's bad for veterans that have been there for a while. But also, I want them to understand that, man, this is a game that's very competitive, and it's always someone behind pushing you, waiting for what happened to Bledsoe. Unfortunately, it's a game of, you can get hurt or injured in this game. They always ask you, are you hurt or are you injured? You know what I mean? That's the first thing they'll tell you. What you say determines whether or not how long you stay, because there's too many people out there that they can pick up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they can get, so they're not gonna waste time with nobody to develop them to get them ready.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what makes the MFL so great. And I'm not just saying it because it's me and I found this and everything, because we're here to develop players. And, I'll get this in. For all players that's interested, yes, we are still signing players. We have moved the season back because of this COVID stuff. Do not be misled about it, because it's serious, and I don't want nobody to get sick out here because people not taking it as serious as they should, Keith, as far as this. So, yes, we moved that back. Hopefully we'll get going. And you know me, Keith, and anybody know me. If we can go, we're going to go. I don't care how many games left, because we want to go, but we still want to be mindful of, we don't want anybody to get sick, but it has to be conducive to what we need to do. We can't go in a place that only restricting us with so many people that, I still have to pay money out that I don't, that I don't have for the venue. So I just want these young people, especially HBCUs, man, this is a great league. And Keith, I'm not just saying it because it's me. I want you to see it and for yourself and get an opportunity and let us develop a lot of these players. Because Keith, a lot of guys just wasn't ready yet. And I'm gonna tell you from the spirit, if you go in one of the NFL camps and you're not ready, they're not gonna waste time with you because they can't afford to.
Right.
We have a defensive back a camp called Cover One. He got a lot of guys that play in the NFL come to his camp, and a lot of young guys, because you have to be able to run and cover people. And if you can't do that in the NFL, you're just gonna be short.
Yeah, these camps are great in essence for what they are. I mean, some of these guys have made a fortune helping these guys, get better. But that's
play the game as well.
There's
run up and down all you want.
Well, that's a good point too. There's a lot of quarterback camps and things like that. I mean, the reps are important, but the in-game experience is paramount that way. But it's really a situation where even the NFL guys understand instead of played at all, and then for some reason they're out of the league. The team cut them. They know they've got to be ready because they could get a call from another team, that they could get another opportunity in a different league. Anything can happen. The Washington football team recently cut one of their longstanding offensive linemen, Morgan Moses, and it's just they got young guys coming in, and it's a very unfortunate. And he's a really, really good guy and a solid player, but again, a veteran gets cut. It happens, and those guys they suffer as much as the young guys do, and sometimes more because there's a lot less upside for them. You got to get somebody to believe in what you're doing. So you have to be able to go out and actually play the game, and that's key. But the guys that come out of the smaller colleges or the HBCUs or even the bigger colleges that don't have the rep experience, MFL is a perfect place. It's crazy how many. I mean, it took me a while to grow to the size I'm at, but I'm about 225 right now, 6'2", 225. But when I see guys that are like 6'6", 308, I don't care what league they're playing in. I say, hey, how you doing? So when I have to look up that way, it's big boys. But that's guys develop at different times of their playing career. I mean, I grew 3.5 inches and gained about 20 pounds after I graduated high school. It was too late because that was when I was in college. But guys come out of college and some of those guys, because they're 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. So they're young men and still figuring out what their body's going to do for them and what they're able to do. So you never know, but you've got to, again, it goes back to the reps. It just does. I mean, the greatest players, it doesn't have to be football players, greatest athletes or greatest musicians, guys that you would think never would have to do scales in their life, continue to do it. And because they need to keep their edge, or they're looking, they're seeking, they're searching for that next level. And you never know if and when you may find it. So,
and a lot of people don't understand. You're right, Keith. That the fact that Deion, Sanders, he made a good point. But also, don't forget all these other big schools around the country. I mean, it's talent in the HBCUs, but you think about all the other schools that the kids going to.
A lot of schools.
There are
a lot of schools.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm gonna make another trip. I'm on the phone. I got my people on the phone because I'm trying to get some kind of rapport with these guys at the HBCUs. I was down Tennessee State, a few weeks ago, but they have to understand, man, this is an opportunity for them. More and more importantly, we have to, we're going to figure out the league again because we're going to shift some during the off season. and put them in places like where they had these HBCUs at and stuff. It's very important that we do that. And these guys and these coaches need to, let them know, okay, you didn't get drafted. Don't go home. Don't pout and stuff. Okay, here we go. We got the MFL. Go there. Develop even more. One, you're going to be seen. You're going to work on your skill set. And you're going to play because you can be on all the shape you want. It ain't football shape, buddy. You got to actually be playing in the game when you getting hit and being hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then your technique is different. I mean, you come up against 300 and what you say, 6'6", 308 is 6'6", 308. You know what I mean? I don't care what school you've been to or what school he went to. So, that's still a big guy that you're dealing with, And then you have some guys that didn't get the opportunity to go to the big schools and they have a chip on their shoulder. And then although you went to a fairly decent school, and then, he looking at you like, okay, you was there, but you here with me. So now let's see just how good you is, because Keith, if given the opportunity in a situation, put anybody in a certain situation, a certain environment, they would excel. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You think about it. You think about the weight room, the training room, your table, where the guys eat from your training table, and when you eat, that makes a difference. You know what I mean? It does. It makes a difference. So you can get an average guy, and you can turn him into a Superman. You know what I mean? Because of the weights and because of the training program. So you think about guys getting the opportunity that they really not able to get in some of the schools they went to. But here, yes. Yeah. And then you played against those guys that you heard of playing in them over schools. Now, you don't have all the fanfare and stuff. You there and I'm here.
Yeah, I mean it's about the playability. That's all what it's about. It's like, if you never get the opportunity, you never had the opportunity. It's not there, right? So in order to be in playing shape, you need to play, and you need to get those on-field reps, and you exactly firsthand what that's about. I mean, you've got to get out there and put the pads on and hit and go through a lot of things. And that's part of the problem in the NFL is because, the NFL has really pulled back. It used to be you went out there, and I think about the two-a-days we did in high school, and, no water breaks. And, nowadays the head coach would have been in jail if he wasn't.
My coach used to put salt in the water.
Exactly. That's what they did. Drink your sweat. I'm like, what? Yeah. So, but nowadays you have to watch out for the athletes and their
and as you should.
Well, yeah, true. I'm not down at all, because that's paramount. But just like the NFL, I mean, the players at the NCAA level are commodities. And these guys, you've got to watch out for your commodities, but you have to still put pads on and hit and go through those kind of reps. And the NFL, as well as the NCAA, have pulled back in that realm, for not wanting to get injuries or what have you. But the flip side is you're more prone to injuries because you haven't set yourself up to be able to prevent those injuries. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's that interesting dichotomy, if you will.
Absolutely. And you look at the facilities, the trainers, and the staff, and strength coaches and stuff that some programs don't have. I mean, let's just be real about it. But you think about, we used to always say, the old saying is, if you ever had it, you'll never lose it. It was the people that never had it trying to get it. So now, just for a second, we take that out of the equation and give young guys that went to these schools an opportunity to play. An opportunity to go up against somebody that plays somewhere else that you might be better than if you had the opportunity to get what? Reps. You're out there practicing, you playing, you're working on your skill, technique-wise. A lot of the guys come out of schools, man, you'd be surprised. The technique is awful. And I don't know if you attribute that because they did not get in a lot of the scrimmages because you know they're going to go but so deep, Keith. You know what I mean? That first and second, third and fourth, you can forget. You know what I mean? You just really wearing a uniform. You know what I mean? And I don't want to say that that's bad, and in a way it is, because I think those guys should be playing your specialty teams and stuff. But they take the second string players and they be playing that. Some of them use their starters on specialty teams. You know that, right, Keith? So what that's saying, you're not really giving the other young men an opportunity to develop. Because, yeah, you, as you stated, yeah, you got the rings and stuff, but because you was on the team, how much did you contribute to the team? You know, and that can be a problem that I have. And, you know, I've reached out to the guys. And like I say, we're going to really, not that we disregard any of the schools, but the HBC uses more, you know, we want to really do a camp for them. Like the NFL was going to do one that didn't happen, but we're going to do a camp and sign guys. Not do it and say, okay, we're going to sign guys from all of the HBCUs.
It's a great idea. I mean, again, I'm not trying to throw ideas out for other people who might be me listening, but it's a way undertapped, I would say almost untapped dynamic, but it's certainly, I mean, with Deion going down to coach at Jackson State, I mean, that you know, it was that was kind of a glamour move, and you know, prime time as well as anybody, but it's, you know, but it did bring a lot of notoriety or a lot of cameras, a lot of visibility to that program, right? Which was great, and you know, even though he played at Florida State, you know, he still brings will bring some good visibility to the HBCUs. That's what he says. Now, how he orchestrates it and how he actually does it is yet to be seen. We'll see from that standpoint. Obviously, he had a Hall of Fame career in the NFL, so he's played at that level as well. He played for a lot of years for a number of teams.
It had nothing to do with where you at now.
Right, exactly. But as you know, when you're recruiting, the same way when Phil Jackson coached the Lakers, or when, you know, Saban's down at Alabama, it's like, hey, I wore all my rings today. I hope. Oh, let me check my toes. You know, so when you have all these things to say, this is what you could get. Yeah, it makes a difference. So, you know, with Deion talking about, hey, come play for us, and we'll develop you into an NFL player. Well, I'm not sure if Deion has that capability to be able to do that. But at least the school is saying, hey, we're going to put resources behind you and help to be able to facilitate that. And to your point about the weight rooms and stuff, that's the unlevel playing field, because not all the schools that aren't the big 96, you know, have that kind of facility or have that ability or have that staffing or whatever. So, and I fear that the HBCUs are in that lower tier as well, where the facilities just aren't nearly as good. And I've been at a number of different HBCU facilities, football fields specifically. Some are good, some are bad, and there's some are in the middle. So that's what you're dealing with.
And you know, Keith, I'm glad you said that. Also, Deion, you know, God bless his soul, and a lot of other people, as you know, get ready to go coach at a school, running back for Ohio State. Name on the tip of my tongue, man. I know he'll kill me if he said, Myles, you can't even think of my name. But anyway, these kids, Deion enough to get most parents to say, I'm going to send my kid to Jackson State? No. You know it and I know it. So, you know, it's good that you can. But will he get those top, you know, 5-star recruit? No.
Well,
You know,
why do you go? Right. So
Notre Dame or
here's your question. You got a 5-star. Okay. Your option is to go play for one of the greatest defensive backs ever to play the game, who's coaching at Jackson State, or you can go to a different state, or say an Alabama that has a bunch of rings, and which one you want to do. And so that's an individual question. It's kind of rhetorical, but if you're asking me personally, as I'm that player, I think I'm putting on the Crimson, because
absolutely, people believe in the glitter and the glamour.
I know, but I know I'm going to be seen. I'm going to play against top talent in a huge conference. I'm gonna get obviously the television exposure is huge. Got a chance to play in the national championship playoffs. Versus if I play for Dion, what are my chances of getting much of any exposure and that type of thing? And that's not an intentional knocker or negatively. That's just speaking matter of factly, because the exposure and the competition is just totally different.
Absolutely. So what would it take, Keith? You've been in the media, you've been around sports, you play sports, and I myself as well. What will it take? I still think that these players going to these schools, which wasn't offered a coaching job at the schools they made got rings for, what will it take to kind of shift it? Because kids still not thinking the way we think. And I'd rather go play here for 4 years as opposed to sitting here 3 years and might play and might not, and might end up being red-shirted. Then another 4 years and might not play. But that mindset is, do you want to drive this Rolls Royce or you want to drive the Kia? You know what I mean? So that when you're faced with something like that, and you're 17 years old, and I mean, what would it take? This is me and you having the conversation, in terms of getting the mindset of these young people, not only them, but their parents too. Because the parents want to see their son on TV, Channel 7. They want to watch them in the evening. Even if they're not playing, that's my son right there, number 11. Wait a minute, Tanko right there on the sideline.
Yeah.
Forgetting the fact that he's on the side, he's not playing.
Yeah.
But they boast about he's there. In schools, man, they have 90 guys on the team.
Well, again, I have to use Alabama as an example because
after really 40, you don't know the rest of them names.
Right. Alabama carries, I think it's 70. It's between 70 and 80 guys, right, on a team, because somebody's got to be the tackling dummy. They have a program down there. They have a system, and I bring guys in. They know, what, they're successful, and they bring the top guys because they've been successful. They win national championships. So then it becomes of who do you want to play? Why do you think the Buccaneers are so good now? Because they got a guy who everybody wants to play with. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady comes in, he leaves New England, he comes into Tampa Bay. All right, that's a good fit for him. He's doing good, right? All of a sudden, you get guys coming out of retirement because they want to play with him, or the guy he's played with guys before, and that type of thing. So all of a sudden, there's a system, and when there's a system, in a way, it's a winning system. Then this is Dion's issue, or part of Dion's issue, and this is part of the HBCU issue. You've got to build winning programs. You can't have football teams that are 1-10. That's not even competitive, and it's not all about the W's. But you've got to get a winning system or winning thought process in place. If you've got to change the mindset to kind of circle back and kind of try to answer the tough question that you asked, you've got to change the mindset. And the only way you can do that is to have repetition and to continue to remind people of why it exists and where we're going. Because you say to somebody, we're going to Italy. Great. When are we going? I don't know. How are we getting there? Well, plane. When are we leaving? I don't know. That's it versus saying we're going to Italy in November and we're going from the 11th to the 21st and we're going to be on this airline and we're going to, there's a huge difference in those two scenarios. I said basically the same information in both of them, but the first one was, I don't know. So you can't have, I don't know. Otherwise a league like the MFL wouldn't have been around for more than 2 decades. Because if you said, I don't know, people start looking elsewhere.
So what do you do when you think about, Keith, what would it take to get these young people to understand? As you know, the big schools are not playing those small schools no more because of what happened maybe 45 years ago. You know that, when you play some of them schools and you play the wrong one, like Appalachian State, you don't want to run into that. So now they're really more careful about. At one time, they used to play the HBCU schools. Remember, they used to bring them up just to get their team up, a soft schedule to beat up on. But you have to be very careful with some schools there, and I think the big schools realize that. So even then, it's hard because they're not making those mistakes they used to make. Remember?
Yeah. So my alma mater, the University of Maryland, played Howard University a couple of seasons ago. They're scheduled to play them this season as well. Well, when they played them the last time, the score was 70-0, 70-0. So, and Maryland came out on the winning side, thank goodness. But that was a total drubbing and demoralizing as a football player. Yes, demoralizing as a program. Yes, I paid you $2 million, $3 million, whatever it was. It was a money game, and that money is important for those schools that come in and bring their teams in and just get beat up on. But as a program, that just showed where we're not. I mean, it didn't have to be that 70-0 score. It could have been 55-7, whatever the lopsidedness is, and that just that hurts Howard as much as it helps them.
Well, they should never play that game. Monetarily, a school like when Michigan made a mistake and played Appalachian State.
It happens. It happens more in basketball than it does in football, which is
great. But they're more mindful they look at schools real good now. Appalachian State, everybody knows, do not mess with them. They a few thousand students away from being on the
well, there's a prime point you made without even probably intentionally trying to make it. Appalachian State is a legitimate program now, not because of that win, because they have changed the mindset. They have, you ask most people where Appalachian State is, and they'll say, Appalachian what? So but it's a smaller school that has built a solid football foundation. And we'll go toe to toe with just about anybody, and that's the mentality you need to have for the HBCUs and the conferences that hold those schools as well. Because when those small schools start winning, Coastal Carolina is another example. I mean, they've had so much success in the last 5-6 years. It's unbelievable, and that's a school that you would have said. I mean, again, you ask people where Coastal Carolina is,
can't tell you.
A lot of them wouldn't be able to tell you. I know it's in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. My nephew went there, and I said to my brother, "Do you know you sent your kid to spring break, right?" So he only lasted a semester, and then he went into the Marines. So the world is a better place now. But that's who would think in Myrtle Beach there'd be a successful Division I football program, right? So to Jackson State or to even Howard, any of those, and Howard being in D.C., in a big city, in Washington D.C., needs to put a better program on the field. And so it doesn't matter if it's small town or big city. HBCUs need to step up as well, to be able to be prominent if that's the direction they want to go into.
Right. Well, Keith, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. I want to let all the players know we're still signing players. Give us a call, 240-551. We're on all the social media platforms. And as usual, thank you, Keith, for coming on. You've been watching another edition of Inside the MFL. I'm your host, Dr. Richard Myles Sr. We'll see you Friday. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Myles.